nothing in the bank belongs to you. Let that sink in. I promise you it is true on a legal basis. As of the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010, everything that you think belongs to you in the bank is actually a loan from you to the bank, and they are free to do with it as they wish.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for December 9th through December 16th, 2024, while supplies last. First, we featured the exclusive 2-ounce silver Canadian Rockies coin from the Royal Canadian Mint at just $3.49 over spot per ounce. We also feature the limited edition 2024 1-ounce gold UK Lion and Eagle coin at just $99 over spot per ounce. And finally, 1/10-ounce gold Britannia are just $29.99 over melt per coin. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Dunagun, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
Very well, thank you, Clay, for having me back on.
Hey, first off, where can people go to see your work? If I go to YouTube right now, where can I go? If people want to see your work, where do they need to type into YouTube to find you, sir?
Just go to Liberty and Finance, and that's on YouTube or Britannia or Rumble or SoundCloud or Google Podcasts, etc. Liberty and Finance.
Liberty and Finance. I'm looking you up there. There appears to be a beautiful man there by the name of Dunagun Kaiser. Is that you? He looks good.
That's
you
me.
look good, Dunagun. Okay. And what kind of content do you put out there on your broadcast?
Well, since we started our channel in 2013, the whole mission is to help ordinary families and individuals be prepared for self-sufficiency and self-reliance, as ironically, as Putin is now mentioning, so that we're not dependent upon the government or quote unquote the system, which is not always aligned with the best interests of ourselves, our children, our grandchildren, our futures, etc. And as the focus on our channel initially was fairly broad, talking about food security, homesteading, health, and also on finances, it became clear over time that there's about a 10-to-1 level of increased interest on the part of our audience to financial topics, because financial preparedness seemed to be a clear and present danger that people saw the train coming down the tracks toward them and thought that they better take actions to make sure that they're taking care of their business for their families. And they're right, because our very income, our earnings, our savings, our retirements are being stolen right from under our noses by the way that the system is allayed against us. And that's not just through inflation. We can talk about the destruction of our purchasing power, et cetera. People know about that. They feel it every day, but also systemic risk to the system. The banks are under great stress, and the entire financial world is under a tremendous stress. And we're on a precipice that has not been lost on those other countries in the world who aren't sleepwalking as many in the West are, but the Eastern Bloc, as you mentioned, the BRICS countries are taking extremely concerted actions, and have been. In the last 4 years alone, the central banks of the world have accumulated, and this is not the Western world, not the United States, Britain, Canada, and our close allies, but the Eastern world, and even some that are in our hemisphere, like Brazil, et cetera, have accumulated in the past 4 years more physical gold into their treasuries than the past 60 years combined. And that's only what they're actually reporting. And as Sun Tzu says in The Art of War, appear weak where you are strong and strong where you are weak. So whatever we're being told about what their actual numbers are, some of the analyses done by, for example, one of our guests, Alistair McLeod on our channel, who's a former bank director, says that the People's Republic of China probably has between 5 to 7 times as much gold as they're officially stating, because there are all kinds of ways they can have it in undeclared accounts and other sorts of areas. And now we're acquiring it. We'll talk about how they're getting this, because it isn't all above board and on the exchanges where people in the West look for metals to be taken off, and they have been, but it's also through backdoor methods all around the world that they've been accumulating metals. So our channel has been focusing primarily on, in addition to food security and other types of preparedness, financial preparedness, to help people protect their families and the next generation, make sure that their children still have hope of a financial future, which otherwise we all may not if we don't take individual actions.
Now, let's go back to this topic again. Since last time I talked to you, I mean, China claims to have unearthed the largest gold deposit in the history of the world. Russia has said, hey, by the way, this just in, while you guys are finding more gold, we have now stored away at a historic $207.7 billion. I want to get your thoughts. Do you see any correlation, any connection between those two events?
Well, absolutely. And the contrast, I'll give you a contrast because you mentioned two on one end of the barbell. On the other end of the barbell is the West, where we have supposedly 8,000 tons of gold in Fort Knox, and yet it hasn't been audited since the 1950s. And Canada divested themselves of all of their gold, supposedly at the U.S.'s instructions back in the late 20th century. And Britain, the vaults of the Bank of London have been getting drained by all the other countries of the world who had parked their gold there, so-called repatriating it, meaning we're no longer comfortable so-called storing our gold with either London or the COMEX in New York. We want it back within our own borders. So there's been this tremendous dichotomy. And that's one thing I wanted to add to what you said there, is at the same time that we're starting to see the beginnings of what's going to be a big bang announcement from the East that they've got the gold. And, we're all familiar with the golden rule from the Bible, but there's a kind of a modern version of it that says, he who has the gold makes the rules. And these countries, a lot of it is due to our own mismanagement of the extraordinary privilege of having the world reserve currency, are out of necessity looking out for their own best interests of their countries and marching towards having real things, commodities, and gold and silver being preeminent among those. But the West, in contrast, seems to be completely doubling down on just our fiat, meaning this backed by nothing other than because we said so, financial system. And we can talk about the incoming administration and their stance towards that, in contrast to the stance that's being taken in the East, if you like.
Well, I want to go back to this golden rule. Can you repeat that again? He who owns the gold makes the
rules.
Okay, explain what this means and how that relates to these BRICS countries hoarding the Earth's gold. Yeah,
so... Well, J.P. Morgan, who is probably the most famous banker of all time and is arguably perhaps the richest man of the modern epoch, said, gold is money. Everything else is credit. So whenever I have a conversation with anyone and they say, oh, I've got a good retirement because I got money in the bank, or I've got money in stocks or bonds, or I've got money in CDs, or I've got money here, I've got money there, I sometimes say to them, are you sure you have money? I would guess that you don't have any money, because 99.5% of the people do not have any gold. And if the most influential banker of the last couple of centuries says gold is money, everything else is credit, all that most people actually have are credits in the system. And we've all perhaps walked by a casino or something, and you hear the blinking and the blinking of the lights and everything. Of course, everything's colored gold because it pushes a very deep button and resonates with our instinctive relationship with that. But if you look at it, you've just got credits in the system, and that's the direction that the West is heading. For individuals, the future that's been planned out for us is, as the World Economic Forum famously quoted about a couple of years ago, saying, you'll own nothing and be happy. The whole idea is you will own nothing and someone else will own all assets, and you'll have the privilege with their good graces of being able to use them. So the financial aspect of that is chilling, and that is the prospect of central bank digital currencies, where you can't even pull cash out of the bank because there's no such thing as cash. We're rapidly entering a cashless society where all you have is credits in the system. And if the system goes down, you have nothing. Or if the system decides you're an enemy of the state, or you didn't do the right thing, or you didn't say the right thing, or you're associating with the wrong people, et cetera, you're traveling to the wrong places or whatever, then you don't have access to your funds, et cetera. So the idea being that if you have real things, if you have real money, you have stored energy from your life work and that you've saved up or you've earned or whatever, and you can use that for your current or present or future needs, or those of your children or grandchildren. But if you don't have real money, all you have are credits. And you have counterparties who can deny you access to those credits or can devalue them. And that's what's happening right now. We can go into that. That's been happening faster and faster ever since the formation of the Fed in 1913, and also faster since the Great Depression. We can talk about how the devaluation of our dollar.
Real quick, I'm just going to ask this question on behalf of somebody out there that's going, yeah, but what about Ripple? what about Ripple? Because you see now that the man behind Ripple, I'll play a little clip here. The Ripple, by the way, folks, Ripple claims to, the leaders at Ripple are claiming now that, CBDCs are inevitable. Central bank digital currencies are inevitable. And the folks who developed the Ripple technology, they're excited about it. This guy's kind of taking a victory lap here. Watch this, folks. This is Ripple. There you go.
Immediate reaction is, I think there's some more education needed in the marketplace. I think...
By the way, this is James Wallace, the Ripple VP of Central Bank Engagements and CBDCs. Listen to this, folks. Listen to what he says.
Immediate reaction is, I think there's some more education needed in the marketplace. I think there's a lot of discussion around a CBDC, what it is, what it isn't. Is it the government going to be spying on citizens, all this kind of thing. So I think there's a education required. At the end of the day, I think the federal government, trumps state governments in this. But I think really, I don't think the citizens have anything to be concerned about. CBDC is a digital representation of fiat currency. It's likely to get implemented in pretty much every country around the world. It's coming. There are going to be some great advantages to it, great use cases that will, people will get benefit from. So I see news like that. I think, okay, well, this will probably disappear when people get a bit smarter, a bit more educated about what's really going to happen.
China and Brazil have completed their first bilateral trade using local currency. The move joins a host of other countries moving away from the US dollar in a shift of the global economic balance.
Okay, so I just want to get your reaction to the statements from the leadership of Ripple.
Well, a couple of the things in there were, I think, very eye-opening and chilling for people who've actually lived in our modern world for the past couple of decades, when the gentleman was saying that people need to be re-educated about trusting the government to not be spying on them. It's like, oh, really? So first of all, the whole topic of people need to be re-educated, doesn't that sound a lot like something that was happening in China in the second half of, during the Mao era, et cetera? And also that we need to be convinced that the government is not spying on us. What did we learn from Edward Snowden about our cell phone usage, about our emails, about surveillance, 100% surveillance of all communications, which was supposedly only supposed to be used against foreign spies and espionage targets and that sort of thing, but is being used against the American people. And he was considered a public enemy for exposing this. So that's one of the things that was concerning about what the gentleman said. But the other aspect of it, which I would underscore for people, is if all you have is credits in the system. My wife and I, for example, after the .com stock market collapse of 2001 and so on, decided that when we approached 2007, that we wanted to move all of our money out of the stock market and into a money market fund. So we did. And then we got a lovely little notification from our brokerage saying that until further notice, your access to the funds in your money market account will be suspended, and we'll keep you informed. And we called up and said, no. They said, well, it was due to the market crash of 2008, 2009. We said, no, we're not in the stock market. They said, well, you weren't in the stock market, but your money market fund was in the stock market. So you're not going to have access to your credits of your money market fund until further notice. This kind of thing, this counterparty risk that's under the control of the financial system, which, by the way, is also has great systemic risks to itself right now because of a lot of reasons. Interest rates making their bond portfolios underwater, non-performing commercial loan zombie companies, they're defaulting on commercial loans, et cetera, means that credits in the banks and in the brokerage account and in money market funds, et cetera, which are all precursors to the ultimate central bank digital currencies, are all outside your reach. You can't do anything about it. If you don't get access to it, there's nothing you can do. So I don't think that people need re-education to start trusting their government more. They need education to realize that their gut has been telling them all along that unless you hold it in your hand, you don't really own it.
Now, again, I'm going to quote a wise man by the name of you earlier today. You said gold is money. Everything else is credit. You were quoting J.P. Morgan. You also said he who owns the gold makes the rules. You also said 99.5% of people in America don't own gold. There's just a lot there, folks. You probably need to watch this show twice to really soak in all the wisdom. Now, let me play this for you. This is Gilbert Verdian. Now, Gilbert Verdian could be like your evil twin, in my opinion, because he has sharp glasses, he dresses sharp, he's articulate, but he's saying the opposite of what you're saying, because in my opinion, he's in favor of programmable currencies. What do I mean? Why am I saying that? Well, he runs a company called Quant, and Quant is the technology that will usher in a programmable central bank digital currency. Listen to what Gilbert Verdian says, folks.
Current form of money that we have today is obsolete. We've been using the same system for centuries. What we need is a new form of money that is fit for the future. Blockchain allows us to have smart money. Smart money allows us to program new types of logic, new types of functionality into money to do things that is really fit for purpose for the 21st century. So money is evolving from a very binary thing, which is where it is today, to a very complicated, intelligent form of money, which we call smart money.
The financial system will become so complicated as AI takes over more and more of the action that it will be just too complicated for the human mind. So how does a system functions when no human really understands it? The nature of money is going to change quite dramatically. The old systems of trust and of ownership will have to adapt radically.
We're shaping Wall Street, simply put. So we've done the opposite. So instead of going door to door, we've gone and partnered with a traditional exchange. So AX Trading already has 800 institutional traders. This is all of Wall Street, and they've got, connectivity to Euroclear here in Europe. So if you think about it, this is it. This is the whole financial capital markets structure.
I think Wall Street are even aware of just how big.
Yes, they have now that they see the potential, and they're all in, and they're all in, and they're all in.
We don't have to guess the date. I can tell you the date. It's August 22nd, 2023, about 2 months from where we are now. It's a BRICS summit. It's in Durban, South Africa. The Chris
Okay, let's stop there. Jim Rickards is talking about how the BRICS summit, at the BRICS summit, they are going to announce the expansion of the BRICS bloc, which they've done. And so the BRICS bloc now has a lot more countries. I mean, a lot more countries are joining BRICS. I don't know if people understand this, but the vast majority of central banks across the world, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, the vast majority, 90% of them or more of the world's central banks have said they're working on some kind of central bank digital currency. And the BRICS nations, which can now control the majority of the Earth's resources, they're appearing to now be the BRICS nations now appear to be the majority of the Earth's countries. So it appears as though there is a shift happening. I just want to get your reaction to, I hate to do a three-part question, but I just want to get your reaction to Gilbert Verdian and Yuval Harari talking about programmable money, and then just where you see this headed.
One thing that I think is a tip-off is when people say it's now so complex that you won't be able to handle it on your own, and nobody will be able to understand it. That should be screaming, flashing red lights on the dashboard of your life that say, I want nothing to do with that, because what that does is it completely disempowers the individual. It means you no longer have agency in your own life. You're completely a helpless victim of the system that says you are just no longer necessary as a decision maker in your life because you're not qualified to make decisions in your own life. We'll tell you. That's what you tell slaves. That's what you tell people who do not have any freedom. So if that's a future that you want, then just go for it. And I'm sure there's always a promise of convenience and instantaneous this and that and the other along the way until there isn't. And it also, we've also talked with Steve St. Angelo from the SRS Rocco report several times, and he talks about the complexity of civilizations always leads to this building a Tower of Babel until it becomes so complex that it comes crushing down under its own weight because it can't sustain itself. So yes, there seems to be something in the fallen human nature ever since we got kicked out of the Garden of Eden that makes us want to build this tower on our own through our own brain power. And now it's AI. So we're going to try to build God and make God. And that's a quote actually from Google, from a project manager there about their AI project saying we created God. So Yep, that's part of our fallen human nature, but woe be to those who trust that with their future. There is only one God, and he and he alone. And so we need to realize that any system that's so complex that it makes us unqualified and incapable of making decisions in our own lives is not one that's going to provide freedom. And that's what we have a right to have, is freedom for us, our children, and our grandchildren.
You know, people always ask me, they say, Clay, what's the best cryptocurrency I can shift to protect my financial sovereignty? And I say, what? And they say, what's the best crypto? And I said, so you're wanting me to tell you what's the best programmable kind of money you should shift your money to avoid being a victim of programmable money? Huh? So I always tell people, I would recommend that you buy precious metals. That's what I would recommend. That's what I do. I want to get your thoughts on this idea. I'm seeing more and more conservatives now rushing into Bitcoin, into Ripple, XRP, et cetera.
One thing that I think is important to realize is that there may be multiple answers to ways that we can transact, but that doesn't mean that it changes anything about what the base value asset is. And again, I'll go back to Alistair MacLeod, former bank director, who talks about the distinctions of the reasons that he believes that cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, do not meet the definitions of money. It's been very well thought out over millennia what actually makes money. And one thing is a stable store of value. And when you're as dependent as cryptos are on a constant electrical supply, and also on the ability, the technology to support the transactions, et cetera, it does make you dependent on things that are going to provide potential barriers between you and being able to live your life. So it's important to recognize that you need to have a stable asset, a tangible and stable asset as the foundation. And then there can be technological solutions to make it more convenient to transact over distance, because it's absolutely true. Every day we like to buy and sell and send gifts to our kids on the other side of the country or whatever. And it's very handy to have electronic means for doing that. It doesn't mean that that's your store of value, just to keep those two distinct.
So I want to ask you this with the final, 4 or 5 minutes we have here with you. If I'm watching this show today and I go, okay, the value of gold's going up, value of the dollar's going down. Would you say, as for you and your family, it's a good idea for you personally, you as Dunagun, do you think it's a good idea for your family to buy precious metals?
Right. That's a decision that we crossed that line. Actually, my homeschooled son helped educate me on that when he came to me with some very complex questions, just like when kids show up and say, Dad, why is the sky blue? He came to me and said, Dad, where does money really come from? And who gets to give it its value? And then who do they get to give it to and why? And then how does that all fare? And on and on. I couldn't answer any of those questions. So the farther he dug into it down the rabbit hole, the more we both became educated and realized there's something rotten in Denmark. There's something very foul and sinister about our financial system, because for over a century it has been determined to take away freedom and to steal basically the fruits of everyone's labor. There's a wonderful book. If you don't have it, you should get it out. I don't have time to dig it out of the cupboard. It's right next to me. It's called The Fruits of Graft, Great Depressions Then and Now by Wayne Jett. It's about not only the Great Depression of the 1930s, but how it's directly tied to our current lives and why you've got to take action, such as owning real things as an individual and as a family to get through the changes that are coming. If at least, just say you say, all right, I don't know what the next system is going to be, but I need a bridge that's going to get me there where I'm not like a hermit crab in between shells during the time in between the current system and the new system. I need something that's stable and something that's solid and something that's real. I have a very good friend that I worked with for years whose grandfather passed away, but had left his wife, my friend's grandmother, with a small safe in the living room filled with gold. And out of that safe of gold that her husband had left her, she put all of the grown kids through university. Some became doctors, some became lawyers. They all started technical careers. That family carried on for 2 generations with the fruits of the gold that the grandfather had stored up. That's the kind of thing that you can have for your family that doesn't depend on technology, doesn't depend on AI, doesn't depend on things you can't understand, but can carry your life intentions and your good work that you've set aside into the future for your good, for your needs and that of your family.
So final question I have here for you. For people out there that say, Dunagun, you have the floor. Tell me what I need to know. What do you believe that our listeners need to know there? I mean, you study this all day, every day. What is the piece of information or the advice that you think all of our listeners need to know, sir? Sir?
Well, I think I'll reiterate something that I said the first time I came on your show, and that is that nothing in the bank belongs to you. Let that sink in. I promise you it is true on a legal basis. As of the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010, everything that you think belongs to you in the bank is actually a loan from you to the bank, and they are free to do with it as they wish on the backside to try to make higher risk bets to try to make their profit. So no checking deposits, safe deposits, savings deposits, no CDs, no safe deposit box contents. None of that belongs to you in the bank. That's one thing. And then also what Wayne Jett said from the Fruits of Graft book, I'll quote him. He said, the worst trick that the bankers ever played on the ordinary person was to, instead of letting them keep the fruits of their labor in their own pocket, they made them write the fruits of their labor on a piece of paper and put it in the banker's pocket. And then the banker was free to do with it what he would. So remember that your life energy that you spend working and earning and saving belongs to you. It was your life that you spent doing that, and it's yours to keep and to hold on to. If you give it to the banks, if you give it to the government, you no longer have control over it, and it won't be there for you. It can be taken away for any kinds of reasons, and it's not a way to take care of your family. So make sure that you take care of your family first, and then you can take care of your community and help others and spread the word.
Dunagun, thank you so much, sir. I really do appreciate you. I'll put a link on today's show, notes to your website, to your publication, to your YouTube channel, so folks can check it out there. Again, Dunagun, thank you so much for your time, sir, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Clay. Blessings to all of you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for December 9th through December 16th, 2024, while supplies last. First, we featured the exclusive 2-ounce silver Canadian Rockies coin from the Royal Canadian Mint at just $3.49 over spot per ounce. We also feature the limited edition 2024 1-ounce gold UK Lion and Eagle coin at just $99 over spot per ounce. And finally, 1/10 ounce gold Britannia are just $29.99 over melt per coin. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.